Hello guys, this is your friend and we are back with a new fanfic part 3. Which is what if Temari's first meeting with Shikamaru was a disaster part 3. And if you enjoy this fanfic then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start the fanfic. He wondered how she felt like. How would she feel like under his touch, or against him, or beyond all that, with or without clothes on. It didn't matter how insane it sounded in those final moments. The sleep left him and self-awareness made the blood rush from his head down to his groin. That was troublesome to say the least. Since that Friday night, he hadn't been able to stop thinking about her. The way she said his name, so carefully, with intent, in that accent, it made every part of his skin blush with warmth, probably fear prickling somewhere in the mix. Not knowing whether his name would come with good intentions or bad, it's like she intentionally controlled that unknown just to mock him with it. It had all been so unpredictable, so damn thrown off that he still couldn't comprehend it all, or her, or why she said it, or why he wanted to prove something to her, why he wanted to put effort into figuring it all out, if anything to keep himself from losing his mind at such a brazen move. Did she want to? With him, even though he was she being that direct with him? That obvious? Was he still dreaming? Now those dreams had been all too real. Clothes off and red marks littered across his body, hers too once he got to taste it, and her. A dream that could never become a reality. He dreamt of her, laid beside a woman he was supposed to be faithful to. He dreamt of another and he concluded that he really was insane. How could she invade his thoughts after work hours? How could she not? Claiming he couldn't last a night with her, setting a challenge on the table and stabbing his pride a bit. Okay, more than a bit, but that wasn't the point here. She'd probably make troublesome too. Or mind-blowing. He winced at that last thought, not something to think about while his girlfriend laid softly at his side, peaceful and cute, nothing about her bothering him at the moment. Mostly because he wasn't thinking about her too much right now, thankful she couldn't read his mind like that other woman could. Saturday had been terrible to say the least. Hanji cornered his daughter and him and asked bluntly when, why, and how. When would they be engaged? Why haven't they tied the knot? How could he waste his time with things such as patience when all he wanted was this side of his business to be taken care of? As if marriage had a deadline and Shikamaru was famously late for those. He managed a simple soon to appease the man, clearly still not liking his future son-in-law's lack of haste, and the same being said to his future father-in-law about his lack of regard. His daughter, a mess after the whole thing, and his soothing thankfully taking them back home and enjoying the evening inside, alone and without much to bother them. In mockery, now that seemed easy, fun, but not something he could ever toy with. Most women couldn't keep up with intellectual banter either, as that woman could, like a battle she fought to be on top of him. On top. Of course he'd make that suggestive comparison. He almost groaned, his boner aching, but willing himself to stop, to avoid looking at his girlfriend. He wouldn't, he couldn't, he just can't do that to her, think of another woman while doing her. It would be wrong. Good morning. The first words of the morning sounding rough in his parched throat, regretting that final cigarette at the end of the night, the one she wrinkled her nose to. Now she moved slow and carefully up against his shirt and leaned in just enough to hum her own response. Morning, a soft kiss to announce her presence, and she was gone, unaware of his internal conflict, or what couldn't be willed down with all the willpower he had. Guess he'd have to do it alone again. And he did. Hidden away in the bathroom with his hand and the damn devil in his ear, unable to stop once he started, driven by that damn urge that seemed to keep creeping up every chance it got, with every mention of her. Rumors didn't help either. True or not, that woman sat back on them and smiled at their intent to hurt her. Whichever one he had heard, each of them came back to the same point, the same woman. Temari. His breath caught and he came cleaning up after as if he could wash away the sins that he had committed. Breakfast ready, that guilt still clinging, but at least Shiho remained innocent to the secret thoughts. What shall we do today? The question made, as he took his first sip of coffee, bringing energy into his body. clearing it all away and letting him enjoy his favorite day of the week. It's Sunday, he stated, grinning back at her. I'm going to go take Mirai to the park, or maybe zoo if she's up for it, probably grab lunch with her too. He took a slow sip of his coffee, asking out of habit, care to join us this time? You know she doesn't like me very much, Shikamaru, Shiho muttered, hiding her discomfort behind her pink mug. She just turned 2. It's said that children are just very picky at that age, he shrugged, taking his title with a prideful mention. I'm still her #1 favorite uncle. You know you don't have to go every weekend all the way to your hometown. I love doing it, he stated as a fact, he really did. It helps Kurenai out that I take care of Mirai for the day, and I'm sure she appreciates that Mirai has family besides just her mom. You're not even related, Shiho muttered. I'm not related to Choji or Ino either, yet they are my brother and sister. He shrugged, not seeing her concern with his family's dynamic, stating simply, I grew up with them, so they are my family. I don't mean it like that, she sighed and leaned against the counter. A single child without much family herself, I meant that we could take a weekend off every now and then, get away from everything and everyone, she emphasized, just us two. His brows furrowed, chewing slow and catching the way she pressed her lips together, her tone, making a point. One of those infamous silent signals for him to break apart and understand. Thankfully she was as predictable as they got, every small gesture on her face easy to read. You're still stressed about yesterday, he concluded, taking a slow inhale to keep from making a face himself at the thought of that day. My dad is pretty intimidating, she sighed heavily, eyes dropped down to the counter. We're in no rush, and he wasn't, as his father had said he wanted to be a better man worth a mention, and Shikamaru would earn just that. Marriage wasn't a deadline, it was something people worked for, slowly, but surely making it a word that had meaning. The same way he had watched Asuma make his moves on Kurenai before they finally agreed to come together and get married, soon after a daughter was born and his wife was made a widow. You keep saying that, another mumbled response, getting increasingly impatient with him. Are you ever going to be ready? His eyes dropped, glaring at the black sugarless coffee, jaw tight and exhaling his answer. I'm not ready yet. Something hardened in her look. He detected something she didn't like with the way her thin brows creased for a moment, and she turned away from him to go to the bedroom, leaving behind her displeasure. Fine. Women were never just fine. Monday. He had thought long and hard that weekend, coming to several conclusions during the 2 days spent away from work. All women were troublesome. From his mother's insistence to do perfectly, to not be lazy or ember their last name and hold his manners to a high standard, to his girlfriend's cold shoulder after his return on Sunday night, taking the day to spend with family outside their circle to clear his head, it mostly worked. Even Mirai had thrown a tantrum when a pigeon at the zoo refused to go to her. Thankfully ice cream had fixed her mood. He doubted it would fix any other woman's mood around him. The first troublesome thing Temari did that morning, the one that had stuck to him during the 37-minute meeting they had with the others, was the way she let her gaze meet his as he entered the conference room and then completely ignored him during the rest of it. Maddening. Outside he kept his indifference in check, hiding how much it bothered him, listening to Kakashi drawl on about the company's projects for the week. Sakura quick to ask questions and scribble down anything that needed to be remembered, and the queen herself on her own task of writing in her folders. Things going on as normal as if Friday never happened, as if he hadn't thought of her all weekend. Any questions? Temari, however, hadn't paid attention, at least not showing it on the outside as she kept her leisurely pace. Seated straight and leaning against her hand, scribbling a red note down, and keeping her eyes down in the work without a reason to look anywhere until Kakashi interrupted her. You seem distracted, dear, she peeked at him and went back to her notes. Thoughtful, Kakashi, I'm thinking. Muttering as she scribbled down a new mark, her pose set in stone and barely acknowledging the group as she went from one mark to another throughout the meeting. And what is our cruel mistress thinking about today? She scoffed an amused breath and glanced up at him. Wouldn't you like to know? I'm sure you'll be telling me after your lunch with Inochi, a tense in her posture, looking back to him quickly, just edging on panicked. That's today. Letting out a scolding breath at herself, she dropped her pen on the paper and groaned her foreign curse. Didn't your little eye Stan tell you about it this morning? He sat against the table next to her spot and showed his concern, just breaking the seams of his usual carefree look. It's your turn to entertain the big boss. Matsuri might have mentioned a lunch she had, unfortunately the Monday morning had started off rough. Cursed stocking once again ruining her day, this time they had the decency to be torn while she was hidden away in her office. Why did she even bother to wear them? And her coffee, it actually tasted of the horrid stuff, not enough creamer to satisfy her sweet tooth. She wouldn't even begin to think about the weird sound her car had been making since she turned it on that morning, like it was choking. Her weekend, however, was promising beyond compare, between her and a man she trusted since she left Suna, and the future ahead with her professional side opening new doors, thankful to him on her personal endeavors as well. The Friday that she had let fuel her shameless words barely making a mention in her thoughts, just a brighten to her night, for more reason than one. She could practically feel the way those dark eyes were still finding ways to figure out her intent. Hell, she could tell he was bothered, just not enough to mention it. It's like she was still tipsy and he was still the focus of her night. Though now she supposed she'd have to put a new plan into play while in the four walls of this building. With a heavy sigh, she glanced back down at the draft she had been editing and muttered her acceptance. Fine. Do you want to tag out? Kakashi asked, cautiously shrugging a shoulder and offering himself. I could take over in. No, I've got to update Inochi anyways about my project, interrupting and trying to focus her mind on one of the various tasks she took on. The challenges looked glaring, but with such great promise if done right. I still haven't revised the draft fully, would have liked to, but I had other things to handle this weekend. The Southside project Ino had spoken about, was that what she was mentioning? How about the Uzumaki project? He asked as he pushed off the table to walk back down to his boards. Are you ready to get started with the production team later? I'm not doing that, Nara is. His first acknowledgement of the day, and it was already on the list of unpredictable moves. I am. He looked from Kakashi back to her, brows furrowed in confusion. He hadn't been aware that he would be leading a project start to finish like this, alone at least. Would she help him again? I'm sure you remember my friend. Sigh, her gaze focused on him, unmoving as she explained, he's one of the heads of production here and he is going to work with you in order to see your first project through. Aren't you going to help? He braved the question and got his expected cold burning response, a look of indifference following. I've got plenty to do without adding holding your hand to the list. Holding his eyes for a second too long, she made her exit and focused on Sakura, smirk in place. Besides, I'm sure Sakura misses spending time with me. Actually, I kinda do. Sakura sat straighter and grinned back at her, excited to indulge in the special IGN meant she had started with Temari last week. I've got so many questions about the project distribution Sharingan is trying to pull on us. She scoffed in amusement. I mean, do they think we're blind? Did you read up this weekend about their pathetic offers? Pathetic seems too nice. They are trying to rip us off. Temari hummed her agreement and just narrowed her eyes at the edges, tapping the end of her pen to the table as she leaned against her hand, looking closer at Sakura. Dressed from head to toe in a professional dark navy pantsuit and dull blue dress shirt, appropriately buttoned to the second button, casual and ready for work. Sasuke seemed to like you last time we were there. Really? It came out before Sakura could stop her blush from showing, the comment enough to make Temari remember how their first interaction had went. Nearly a month of dealing with that man, and the first emotion she had seen on his face had been when he recognized Sakura from their youth. Yes, Temari flashed a sharp grin back to her, pleased in her plan as she leaned back into her chair and spoke, and I intend to exploit that at tomorrow's little get-together at Sharingan. Humming a shameless addition, so dressed to impress, something a little less stiff. Temari, Kakashi sighed. All I'm asking is for her to flash a cute smile at the man, so she can sway that damn serious look he always has. She huffed, leaning back in her chair further, hiding her irritation badly and unconcerned with Kakashi's focused look back. I'm not asking her to him. With the mention, Sakura blushed furiously, looking down into her papers as Kakashi sighed, letting just a short crease in his brows show his concern. Is the deal going that bad? Temari hardened her look back to him, leg bouncing, seeing Kakashi sigh louder after a moment, her silence a simple yes. All right, with that I believe we should end our meeting for the day. Meet next week, same time. The occupants began their departure. Let me know if you need my help with the project. She had already left by the time he finished speaking. Kakashi hummed thoughtfully in the brief silence. Shikamaru, a moment, the only one remaining in his chair, analyzing every moment of the meeting, he glanced at Kakashi. I need you to do me a favor and figure out what's wrong with her. It's clear the deal isn't going in a good way. A request from Kakashi, easing his brow as Shikamaru finally stood from the chair. Good, he hadn't been the only one to notice the off behavior and he got a favor out of it. I'm still trying to figure that out myself. He muttered as he walked with him to the door. Well, whatever it is, you need to tell me all about it later. Was this just because of the alliance deal? Or was Friday what caused it? Maybe both or something else entirely. Remembering a line his father preached since he was a kid, always apologize to a woman, doesn't matter if it was his fault or hers. Seek peace rather than conflict, so that's what he would do. It wasn't exactly awkward, but he did feel uncomfortable standing at her side today. The hum of those floors being lifted a little louder than usual, her eyes glancing once at that golden watch she treasured and letting out a sigh through her nose, still in that thoughtful distracted mood. He had to fix this, if anything for his job and possibly that friendship he had been working on with her, if that was even salvageable now. Temari, there is something I want to say and I believe that I owe you an apology for Friday. Confused by his sudden admission, she furrowed her brows and looked at him. Why, we're friends, right? He drew out cautiously. Still not friends, she scoffed and rolled her eyes forward, staring harder at the doors as he continued to explain why Mondays were a cursed day. At the very least we're partners. I don't want to give you the wrong impression or offend you. I'm just a man after all, and I have weak moments. His hand found his neck, straining to make sense of this moment, he forced himself to continue, her eyes still set on those doors, but listening. What I mean to say is we should keep things professional. I have an obligation to my girlfriend, so it's wrong to look at you like that, or even have those kinds of thoughts about you, so I'm sorry if I offended you in any way. He nodded to himself, nervously waiting for an answer, begging for someone to stop him, finding her intense gaze on him now harder to hold than ever before, completely unreadable, an unknown danger in the way she was so calm as she asked him. Is that your final decision, Shikamaru? It has to be. He looked away before he said it, tearing off those soul-searching eyes to avoid whatever she was looking for. The short silence was heavy on his end, he could practically hear his own heartbeat ringing in his ears when she finally made her decision. She hummed her judgment and responded as she looked back to the doors, leaving more unease to settle as she sighed and her interest was gone. Sounding more dangerous than her shout had been. Fine. Women were never just fine. Monday, 12:12 p.m. Like any Monday morning, today was both a blessing and a curse. Her morning almost completely forgotten and savoring the way the stuffed gyro tasted as she shared her monthly meeting with her boss. A little spot tucked at the end of downtown and owned by a man who lived a block from her in Southside. A Sunnian shop where they only had a single table and a bar to eat at beside its GL window. Not necessarily deemed worthy for a second look, but the food danced on every memory she had growing up. Spices as red as her lips and rich flavors that warmed the soul. A place she rarely shared with anyone, but Inochi was anyone. Inochi didn't bother with a napkin as he went in for a second bite, leaning into the table and nodding his approval as he chewed. With a sigh, Temari slid over the napkins to him, returning to take another careful bite, keeping the red lipstick from smearing. Always so thoughtful, he managed after swallowing down the first few bites. I'm trying to make sure you don't go back to work looking like a mess, sir. Gyros are a messy business, he stated and chuckled, but so very delicious, already going for another bite and dropping a tomato to the plate. She sighed again. You're just about the only person who isn't from Suna who can stomach the heat of our peppers. Her admission met with the reminder that they both stood at a bar staring into a crowd of lunchtime workers walking the streets and enjoying the burning sensation from their secret lunch spot. If you've ever been to one of our family dinner parties after Choza and his wife do their yearly food tasting around the nations, you'd know that each time they bring back something new and exciting for us to try. He chuckled, wiping at his mouth. It's hard not to get a liking for exotic foods when you've got a friend like him. He shared a fond grin at the memory and looked to her again. How are your brothers, by the way? Is Gaara still a student? He's still perfect, she chuckled, just edging on softer as she bragged about him. He's finishing finals this week, then off to Kumo for a study abroad on foreign laws. Now that's one ambitious kid. He smiled and winked at her. Takes after you, I bet. She nodded pridefully. How about Konkuro? Is his shop still standing? Still being his usual self, she sighed. Well, you tell him I've got a loose axle on my charger. I'd love to book him for an inspection and see if he can fix it. Yes, sir. I'll let him know you'll stop by the shop soon, nodding back to him. So, he hurried, swallowed his next bite to wipe his hands and turned to face her. Let's talk business. What's our update on the Southside project? Well, she set her wrap down and wiped her hands as she spoke. I've established the lines that we are going to get started with by the end of this year. If all goes well, we'll have half of Southside in reconstruction by then. All that leaves is promoting the small businesses by then and getting the word out publicly. That sounds splendid. He nodded to her, always so excited for the good news, slowly dimming as she went on, spilling the bad. But our concern is still the legal battle we are having with housing everyone and still keeping the businesses afloat, she huffed, showing her frustration by glaring at her plate. You said rent shouldn't shoot up, yet it will be almost double by the end of it. I don't know if everyone there will be able to afford to stay, even if we are helping them for free. Well, we have to start somewhere, he sighed. Charitable work can't be done by just one family, unfortunately. No, she hummed her agreement, but maybe we can find another way to get all the money we need for construction. We do have our annual charity ball in a few months. I suppose we can try for a city revival theme, and I can get Shikaku and Choza in on it. She nodded slowly, considering his suggestion that the elites come together to make this dream come true. Tsunade can retire on that note alone, and if all goes well, you'll be bringing us into a new age of peace in Konoha. He sighed, dreamily grinning into the distance, looking at people going about their day from the window. Promoting this dream of yours is going to make such a difference someday. Someday, she agreed with a slow nod, each eating quietly for a moment before Inochi's energy returned and that excitement reached the same one Inos could get to. By the way, how's it been working with Shikamaru? Ah, the dreadful mention she knew would be coming her way, she almost groaned on the outside. I heard his presentation with the Uzumaki brand went very well. You want my honest opinion? He gave her an expectant look, knowing her character well enough to know she wouldn't lie. He's good. Someone with a natural talent for this, but just missing the taught skills to show it. He needs more time to learn how to manage this pace, clearly he's not used to it. You mean your pace, Inochi hummed, taking a bite from the wrap, taking her subtle narrowed glare with a knowing smirk. It's the only one I know how to do, Mr. Yamanaka. She shrugged, keeping the other concerns to herself. Your work ethic is another reason I paired you two up. He just needs a good push to get him going and you are very good at pushing people. A push. Temari almost smirked. He's lacking something though, she began with a sigh. I have the feeling he seems distracted sometimes. And she knew for a fact that it wasn't her that was the cause, well, not most of the time. Looking off into some clouds, some deep thought behind those dark eyes, a shade of brown she's never quite seen before. Whatever this boredom was, it was still irritating her to no end that she couldn't help but entertain her own curiosity. Inochi sighed, heavy and making her instantly alert. That about sums him up. Since the year he started his masters. She raised her brow just a bit, chewing slower, thinking hard and finally letting go and asking. She needed to know more. I sense a story. And he crushed her with one line. She almost cursed. Not my story to tell. It's not something he talks about often or with just anyone. Practically pouting at the thought, she had to figure out his true intent by his casual admission, another damn challenge to put in her way. She did love those and cursed the man for knowing her so well. I know what you're doing, she stated bluntly. You want us to be friends. She scoffed. I don't need friends, sir. Aren't you friends with Kakashi? Kakashi is my work husband. I have to tolerate him or else I'll kill him for another late deadline. He laughed at her remark, slowly dimming down the amusement to offer that careful, serious face he made as he tried to read the look on her face, as if slowly picking apart her mind. The same one she noted that Ino could have when she was actually being real and not the superficial model everyone wanted her to be. All I'm saying is, he drew out slower, emphasizing for her to listen. I know you've got a lot on your plate right now, Temari, and I'd like it if you can open up a little more and show him what kind of difference you're trying to do in this city. Team player, remember, trust that he will be the first person there to help you out. He nodded slower, offering a genuine smile back to her. Please, just try. He was giving her that look again, the puppy dog innocent one that tugged on her history with the man. Too damn good at seeing the bright side of things, undeniably making her trust in his good nature. Like the first moment they met. A happy accident her rebellious brother conjured up for her. Temari had been 17, already leaving the system as a guardian for her brothers, deciding enough was enough after they tried to split her and her brothers up for the second time. Kankuro had taken to learning a new skill, stealing, something she had warned from the start honest people didn't do. She had 2 jobs by then, just part-times she could manage while making sure her brothers stayed in school while she dropped out to keep them fed and clothed. When he had brought home that stolen wallet on a Monday, she had yelled, scolded and shouted until her brother was broken down into a quiet mess. They were not thieves, they didn't stoop that low as to beg. She made sure to teach them the values Shikamaru taught her, not the ones her father had forced on them. Taking that wallet and making her way to Yamanaka Marketing Industries to return it. When she did, she wasn't let go, he had been there to meet her instead. Inochi saw the hidden fear, a young woman seemingly alone in the world, saw her good intentions, and what did the man do? He told her when she was ready that he would hear her story out. And she trusted him enough to share it a year later. I'll try, spoken easier, just barely rough at the end. That's the spirit, Temari. And like a switch his happiness rose to its limit. Oh, and did you hear my daughter got engaged? I did, she nodded and let out a sigh, hiding back the truth and the irritation it came with, always seeing the worst first. I'm very happy for her, she deserves good fortune in her life. I hope her fiancé makes her happy the same way my wife makes me happy. And she lost him, doting on his wife for the remainder of the meeting, and letting Temari enjoy the peace of their exchange. At least she knew he'd always have her back. Shikamaru was right, women were never just fine. Temari ignored him. For 2 whole weeks, she completely ignored his existence as if he wasn't a door down. As Kiba had said, he would be lucky if she just left him alone, though he felt anything but happy about this outcome. Did he reject her in a way that hurt her somehow? Wait, what was there to reject? They weren't friends, yet, simply partners who successfully found a way to work alongside each other. As she had said she wouldn't talk to him outside of work, unfortunately for him now she didn't talk to him during work either. It was like slow falling into madness, to say the very least. Even her assistant looked back with an apologetic quiet smile when she came by later that day with a stack of 3 new projects to pick and choose from due in the next few weeks. Torture given for him to handle alone, and his partner in the matter stuck to her own schedule like a clock that never broke. Whatever her true story was, he had gotten bits and pieces from that night with the others, forced to be an adult at 16, if anything to protect those 2 brothers she talked about, working ever since, leaving home, but for what reason? She was tough, unapologetic, but brutally honest as they came, her secrets dangled before him, but he had taken to only observing his partner that night, possibly to keep from making a mistake every time his gaze met hers. Her drive was inspiring, born of necessity, but was it true? Would she ever give him more of that introduction? And if so, how could he earn more of her time, more of her trust? That's if he can ever earn it back. That hopeless feeling continued through the weeks as he stared back at the wall that stood in his way from her during the silence. Choosing now to focus on his production progress and standing with a new partner during the start to finish process of his first project. It made the work he put in so self-satisfying, his pride touched when his ideas got their own mention. Sharing with that little boy in him who swelled with joy when getting praise for his abilities, a drag when his uncle actually came down one of those days to start another round of embering boosting during the first week. Sai was an interesting man, finding out quickly he was tied to the cruel mistress through their upbringings. Apparently Temari and Sai had known each other for nearly a decade, working similar jobs together growing up and both seeking to crawl out of the glaring look of Southside stagnancy. Aside from the simple, how he knew her, story, he gave no other details, sneaking in a sly knowing grin and chuckle here and there when Shikamaru did let a risky ask slide. In the end getting nowhere with the man about that troublesome woman, it was as if he was sworn to secrecy as well. He was blunt, sometimes a little over-descriptive, his smile never went past a drawn-out curve, but he was humble and explained well, teaching a few tricks of his own in how to handle their given projects with care, dedicated to his work just like Temari was. The artistic side of his style was his main focus, he brought those dreamed-up ideas to life. Next week they would have their budget set and then Ino would be hired to work with them, the request coming from the director of marketing herself. Temari firm on wanting Ino there for this project. Though the way the man suddenly grew nervous at the talk of Ino being one of the models for the brand made Shikamaru wonder if he had ulterior motives. Sai was smitten, if not by the way he nervously talked about it, it was the subtle blush to his pale cheeks with any mention of Ino, showing more past his own cold exterior every time. Sai had compared her to a priceless stone statue of a muse once, a beautifully poetic way of speaking about his sister, enchanted by her beauty as the world was. The theory that Temari had told him about a possible scandal where her fiancé was an unfaithful man bringing some of his own guilt bubbling to the surface. It's as if she created the distance to keep him at bay, but had she only known how much it bothered him instead. Even standing side by side on that elevator she didn't bother a glance his way, stuck in a stoic suspended tension that he couldn't break even if he wanted to, fearful to make another mistake. She didn't even scold him, his tie left crooked and leaving him to figure out where she would step next. He had tried once to speak, on a Thursday evening, but it died down into nothing, suddenly nervous, only managing a short farewell as they left the elevator. Both having stayed until nearly 8 to have whatever project they were on made easier for the next day. Good night, Temari, ready to continue his dragging pace towards his car, expecting silence, the click of those heels paused for only as long as it took her to glance back at him and throw a shot. Try not to get mugged on your way home, Nara. A response made from a memory, rough, but flashing a grin she quickly hid as she continued her pace away from him. It had almost been a promising opening. What bothered him about it was not what she said, or that she had spoken to him, but the fact she had climbed down those steps to a man who waited for her, some burly chocolate-haired guy, rough-looking too, and she willingly took to his side, his arm thrown over her shoulders and bringing her closer as his gruff laugh echoed behind him. Who had that been? adding that question to the rising mountain of scrapped ideas and plans to figure out how to gain back at least some of that trust he once had, or had he just been imagining the whole thing? Shikamaru couldn't help it during the cold weeks she casted on him, catching her leaving her office, entering. Still, the reason everyone's heads turned down and deadlines were met with such haste to seek her subtle nods of approval, as if her pinch of praise could change their lives. He wanted that praise. He needed to earn it back somehow, professionally speaking. Mostly. Every time he was able to hear those heels and the sound of her voice carrying around their office space, all he found himself doing was trying to figure out how to gain back that ground he lost with her. It was distracting, maddening as he had said, the puzzle that she was missing pieces for him to fully comprehend it all. He still wanted to be near that unwavering confidence, let it wave off and give him a kick in the, thankful though for her trust in letting him stand on his own, that glaring deep end looking more like shallow waves each day he got up and went to work and put the effort in. She just wasn't there to see him sink or swim, and it bothered him for some reason. It was like she gave up on him. Whatever happened to their deal? He'd help her achieve the CEO status and he'd learn from the best in the business, her short time working the field proving she was practically born for the role of promoting, of making people's dreams turn into realities, making promises and keeping them. She had been right though, she was too troublesome for him, not just because of his current status as a taken man, but because he was sure a part of him feared failing her high expectations. He needed to put more effort in, and she didn't just force it the first time but made him realize what he was doing this for. It was more than just a job, it was the ability to create change, as charitable as it was profitable. She inspired him to look beyond. He wanted to be like her, professionally, as much as he wanted to please her, to see that out-of-character grin and taunt that just pushed the personal status, but those two lines seemed to blur even now. Skirts, still as short and tight as ever, maybe even more so now, teasing a second look, but nothing getting past that hardened wall. Whatever the urge was, it hadn't stopped creating temptation in his thoughts, dreams, nightmares, or whatever the unfiltered images in his mind were. Hell, they got worse every time he saw her walk past, ignoring him. It's like she was doing it on purpose. Had he messed up and made her uncomfortable? She wasn't avoiding him, just simply not engaging in anything that was what they started to have, putting a block in his road to stay there, stagnant and alone. The way she carried herself daily made him believe she could shamelessly walk around and not give a, holding true that she didn't care for the opinions of those beneath her. Did she think low of him now? Or something? Like he wasn't worth the effort anymore. It wasn't exactly the physical that really drew him in, well, not entirely, it was the way she presented herself, set in stone and radiating power stronger than any elite he'd ever had to entertain during one of those endless nights Shiho forced him to accompany her to appease their last names. Her parents might have not been interested in her throughout her childhood, but with his brand name at her side she had more than a few calls come her way in terms of their elitist status, in other words what the other rich people thought of them. His name, Nara, known for pharmaceutical advances in modern-day medicine, due to old-world remedies and ulterior treatments created from the antlers of deer and other natural resources. As old as the creatures themselves, his retired father only working long enough to establish the New World brand and keep his tabs on it from the sidelines after his first heart attack at the start of Shikamaru's freshman year. His mother was born of humble means, not rich, but not poor, marrying into the Nara name and encouraging her father with a firm hand on how to keep the old money business going, while Shikaku found easier means of keeping their brand in use. With the help of Yamanaka's marketing and the Akamaichi's worldwide shipping companies to aid their families. Both his parents were happy to keep at their own pace now, unless Yoshino forced her hand, they happily took to doing humbling charitable work as their part-time, getting involved with the elites on rare occasions to encourage them to be giving. And so was the drag of being a known name in this city. Now it was his turn to make his mark, and the expectations were high. Temari's standards, however, were even higher. Temari still hadn't come to pick up her favor from him, just more work, whatever it was to be. he was still ready to overthink it all, just as he had been for the past 12 days. She completely ignored his existence, and a little part in him was growing impatient with this silent back and forth battle he seems to be stuck on with her. It was like a calm before the storm around him. Having just watched the stomp of those red heels and the damn sway of matching red-skirted hips disappear into her office, a little eye stant following at her back, all he could do now was keep to his spot, overthinking the memory of it. He apologized, but why hadn't she accepted it? Or had she, and this was just her way of taking it? Or was it something so unpredictable that even he couldn't figure it out? Whatever it was, he kept his head down and worked, patiently waiting for the suspense to end. With a long and agonizing sigh, he dropped a pin in the troublesome train of thought and came back to reality. Listening to Kiba stammer from one page on his schedule for next week to the one of this week's recap. A little clumsy as an aide, but a familiar face that he could patiently wait for, an old friend before things changed. At least it was Friday, he thought, glancing about the space, team members broken off in casual discussions and others working at a leisurely pace. Calm and peaceful now that their mistress was in her office working. Hey Kiba, what's up? Kiba finished something he was writing and looked at him, leaning back in his chair to see more of Shikamaru leaning against his office door. What do you know about favors in this place? His saved question met with Kiba barking out a laugh. I know you shouldn't make one, that's for sure. His chuckle slowly died down as he glanced at Shikamaru's expectant look, growing serious, a prickle of fear thrown into his tone when he realized why he had asked, who do you owe a favor to? Who do you think? Kiba tensed visibly as he figured it out. You're screwed, man, he mumbled, looking up at him with a look of pain. Whatever she's going to use you for, it's not going to be anything good. Shikamaru scoffed. You say that like you've done this before with her. I have been waiting for nearly a year for her to come and collect her favor from me. He nodded slowly to himself, and sighed as he swayed his chair side to side. It's one of the reasons she terrifies me, 'cause I don't know what it is or when she'll come to collect. He shuddered, pretty sure she does it to mess with me too. Is that why she seems to hate you so much? He had noticed from day one, Temari's silent haunting looks at his eye stant, not pure hatred, but definitely dislike towards him. Not entirely. He glanced from his desk and back at Shikamaru, uncomfortable. You see, I kinda. He paused his stammered response and grimaced, dated her brother. He raised his hands up quickly, but in my defense I didn't know it was her brother until after she found out. That explains a lot actually. Shikamaru hid his surprise enough to only raise his eyebrows at the admission. He knew about Kiba's preferences, but he didn't know the cruel mistress's brother was a part of that. Why did you two break up? If you don't mind me asking. Wondering if she forced it. I wanted to be serious, but he didn't, so she split us up last year, because we kept going back and forth on it. He shrugged and looked down to his paper. Accepting his unfortunate fate, she said nothing good would come out of us being together, so I asked the favor of letting us try, and in the end, he glanced back at Shikamaru. She was right, he wasn't ready for a relationship. Sorry, man. He put a hand to his shoulder and Kiba sighed as he looked back up to him. How about we get drinks after work? Are you finally free tonight? For nearly a month, he had been stuck to the same weekend cycle as he had been for the past few months of being back fully in Konoha. Shiho expected to make her appearance with him at her side, those pesky last names making way at events and overly exaggerated dinners, a drag to get through, but it made her happy and he was told to always seek a woman's joy, at least it kept them from turning against him. Advice his father made sure to throw a wink in when he first started dating the heiress, their introduction made through the means of an accident at his mother's planned spring event for charity. A perfect girl to settle down with, simple and a part of that circle their families stayed around. Easy. I wanted to ask earlier, but you weren't at your desk until now. He had made a promise in the first week of starting that they would go out eventually, and the thought of being home tonight wasn't exactly comforting. Shiho had begun to complain, a little more than usual when he'd drag his steps home and fall face first into the couch every day since getting all of the new tasks put on him. He secretly enjoyed the pace at work. It made him think, in a way exercising his brain and enjoying those paths he created for the clients. He created it alone and it fed into his desires to find meaning in each brand, seeking to make a difference, even if one of them was for a potato chip brand Choji liked. He'd missed not one, but 3 different planned events. Granted, one was on a Sunday afternoon and he couldn't miss his play date with Mirai just to go strut around for a meager mention. Times like that made him miss college. At least there he worked at his own schedule, no one to bother him with fixing his steps in whatever direction they wanted to have him. Had to drop Akamaru off at doggy daycare, Kiba explained with a sheepish grin, so drinks. I'll buy the first round. Shikamaru sweetened the deal and got a nod of approval. Sounds good. Kiba smirked back at him, his mood brightened for the day with the promise of free drinks and a night out with an old friend from prep school. Oh, and let me know if Sai calls for me to check up on his progress. He sighed as he stepped back into his office, dreading a part of next week. Next week we have to entertain a bunch of models for the Uzumaki shoot, and if you've ever met Ino's friends you'd understand why it's going to be a drag. You got it, boss. With Kiba's salute he turned back and went into his office, door shut and stripping the jacket off to hang it neatly on the back of his chair, taking a hand and tugging the perfect knot at his neck, already done with ties after only a month into the workforce. He might as well get some of those tedious reports done. Balancing now 4 projects, throwing in the deep end and expected now to swim and not sink, wondering how many projects Temari had in her own hands. Torture, but he could handle anything she threw at him, he would just fix whatever this was when he got the chance to. Maybe even make it home before 9 as he had been the past week, the weight of his first project now in Sai's hands to get things to be presentable, but the pace of the others to show just how much effort he needed to put in to keep up with these high standards she set for her people. Though exhausted most days, the team seemed to thrive on this work drive, a few even getting promoted to team leads in the short time he had been here. Trusted by her to handle more, to prove they could keep up with her fast-paced work ethic, because those who didn't got left behind. Running a hand under his stubbled chin, reminding himself to shave sometime soon, he missed the feel of his facial hair. Begrudgingly deciding the night before his first day at work to follow Shiho's advice and clean up his look, be more professional, shaving off that goatee he'd kept since his sophomore year. He missed it. He had firmly kept his hair, that was one thing he'd never get rid of. Tied back and up, keeping his one family tradition alive with him, the one that didn't make him groan when his mother would scold him for lacking manners. The last few days he took to the new projects, new challenges he was given to figure out alone, and he excelled in finding easier means to make them more appealing, to have them make a tiny dent in the businesses that wanted aid from his uncle's company. He made their dreams turn into realities. Shikamaru almost smiled at the thought of what the predicted future for them would be. Aside from money, it was a promise he could keep for these clients. His door swung open suddenly, jolting him from the page he had begun to memorize, her presence loud and unapologetic as she walked in. Get up, Nara, we've got to go. Her eyes turned down to the folder in her hands, walking only a few steps into pause and read something. Good morning to you too. He tried to hide the confusion edging on his features, trying to process her sudden energy in his office. Still cold, acknowledging him with little regard after, at least she was talking though. What was his puzzle up to today? No time, she muttered and glanced up at him, quick to return to the pages again. Our meeting in Sharingan is in half an hour and I'm never late, so hurry up. Turning she began to leave. I already changed your schedule so that you can come with me. What? No response. Temari, you can't just. She was already out the door before he could finish complaining. What? He sat still for another second, before jumping up. Troublesome woman, he huffed under his breath, already throwing his coat on as he chased after her, following the sound of those heels. Glancing back at Kiba as he peeked his head past his folder with an apologetic shrug. Making long strides past the curious team members, he jogged the last couple of steps to make it into the elevator beside her, her eyes down to that golden watch and ignoring him further as she hugged the stack of folders to her chest. Her first words in days, and they explained nothing to him besides an unexpected field trip outside his office. The doors closed and he let himself speak first. "You can't just drag me around wherever you want, Temari. Yet here you are," she stated plainly, keeping that cold look set on those damn doors, and now that growing impatience made its rare debut. A forced tight-bared grin made at those cursed doors, his tongue snuck out to sharpen his own fangs, unbelievable, letting the past 2 weeks catch up with him, inside and outside of work had been a drag to say the very least. 16 floors to figure this out, and he made his move. Furrowing his brows, he turned to face her, to stand in her way and glare down, to fearlessly hold her own gaze as she instinctively shot her warning up at him. Seeking to break him down and nearly leaning away when he kept at his stone-cold indifference down at her, focused as she was. How dare he so much as think of underestimating her, to stand in her way so openly, so heated as she was. What reason did he have to look so pissed off at her? "What do you want with me?" "Ah, that was the reason. I'm calling in my favor, Nara." His jaw tightened, realizing his debt was being collected right then and there. No devilish smile thrown in, just a sharp narrow of her eyes in warning for him to comply, so you have no choice in the matter. Her eyes dropped for a second, just long enough to point out the flaws in the silence. That ink tie. Crooked. She wanted to choke him with it, even more so when his gaze carefully, slowly, shifted from one eye to the other and settled on the painted lips for longer than it needed to be. As long as it needed to make her feel the intensity of it, as long as she could feel the brush of his jacket on her clenched hand, still holding the files for the meeting against her chest, a little tighter than before, threatening to crinkle the papers inside. She hated this right now. Did he even realize she had done him yet another favor by staying away for nearly 2 weeks, free of charge might she add? She didn't just help herself, but she forced him on his feet and made him run on his own, as she said no hand-holding, and she was a woman of her word. He needed pressure, motivation, and she gave it to him. On the other end, his apology for whatever banter they had before was just gone as he requested in a terribly awkward apology. She didn't need guilty feelings, not that she would get them, but she wanted to cross a line she knew better than to, and that would hurt her professional side. No inside anything, or else the rumors would be true. She was cruel, sure, but a mistress she wasn't, at least within the 4 walls of this building she wasn't. Just a game she got bored of, no fun when both players didn't want to play anymore, the stakes too high. When he finally accepted the favor, only when his eyes returned to hers, she almost panted out her breath, having held it during the silent debate. To keep her impulses at bay, she would tell herself, because they threatened her composure more than ever. Entertaining the daydream that if she just stepped forward, and if he only leaned down, the office clique of elevators acting like aphrodisiacs would be made true. Fine. Low enough that her growing heat flared at the promise it held, it even vibrated in the silence. The damn wave of an old cigarette gone too soon, but leaving behind an apple to tempt her with instead as he stepped back, eyes locked until he moved off her and made his way to her side. His hands came up to his tie to fix the knot. She hadn't even mentioned it, but it was noticed and she almost stupidly grinned at it. One push was all he needed to get him going. 2 weeks she resisted that curious itch to know more, to test limits and see what she could do and what he would do, but she veered off that course with her new and favorite priority. Work. Nothing more than a distraction at her side, though now his usefulness would be tested professionally. She didn't need him, but she might as well make her day easier with his hidden abilities, a mistake he made in telling her. She might even think she was exploiting him for her own professional gain for what she had planned. Temari made her final judgment in the tense silence and stepped out first, his step stubbornly following right beside hers, making it down the lobby with her sounding presence and towards the readied car, their driver leaving as soon as they got in. Seated back, each of them quiet for the start, and once again he braved the first question. He needed to know what she had planned. He knew it involved the Sharingan deal since they were headed there, but aside from that, nothing. What was her endgame now? Can you at least give me a few details about this meeting? All you have to do is stand beside me and look pretty. She didn't even bother to look at him, until I tell you otherwise. You don't talk to me for 2 weeks and now you're making demands, he scoffed, seating straighter to and blowing out a laugh of disbelief. You really are a cruel woman, Temari. Now that pissed her off. Does it bother you that I called you out? Blunt and forceful in her strike, she mocked a pity look at him, feeling guilty, perhaps. He fought back. You're not so innocent yourself. He shot back, unapologetic in matching her harsh tone. She hated it. Why couldn't he just shut up and do as told? Never said I was. She flashed a dangerous bare of her teeth. He darkened his glare, but didn't move to look. More fighting. It did things to her and she hated it. Tell me what you need me to do. Turning to fully face him in the car, she tucked her knees together and leaned in, close enough to smell that tempting cigarette. How does your photographic memory work, exactly? The question throwing him off for a second, verging on a confused look as she waited for her explanation. Like a snapshot, I look at something and can remember every detail if I have to recall it. Every detail. He nodded to her needing a brighten in her day, the task ahead already looking glaring no matter which way she saw it. So she just narrowed her eyes and let the smirk grow enough for him to see. How many times does my come up in there? Please don't start this now, he muttered, fighting and losing the blush to his cheeks, guilt returning. She leaned towards him, closer, facing each other as she spoke fast and with immense warning. What I'm about to tell you is very important and possibly illegal. I'm going to need you to sneak off for a while during our meeting and get a hold of the financial files in Sharingan's archives. An insider of mine told me they should be in their CEO's office. She leaned in closer. He didn't move away, focused on her endgame, or to look at each page from their records and do it without being spotted, so be careful. We need those numbers, so that I can figure out why they keeping our prenup up, and my theory is that they are lying to us about their gross income for the year. They are asking for way too much and I need to know why. He blinked. And you call me insane. You're not the first person to call me crazy. She smirked, unbothered. Probably won't be the last, he shot back with a heavy sigh, both pulling away and readjusting themselves in their sides. Troublesome, but at least her intentions were pure. We do questionable things for this company sometimes. Helps that Suand used to work at a legal firm too. She glanced at him. Keeps us on the right side of the law, legally speaking. But I'm from Southside and we play dirty with people we don't trust. That's why we need those reports. We can't leave this all to chance, so we have to do something like this in order to get some clarity on why things keep going back and forth like this. She sighed, taking a second to breath and remind herself of the importance of this task. This alliance is not just our company we have to worry about, it's also the countless employees that Sharingan has as well. We are gambling with people's livelihoods right now. She casted a short glare his way, emphasizing. So we need you to pull your weight here and get us a step ahead of them. If she wanted to play her games, then he'll match her any way he could. He was not going to be a pawn for her to use. Taking his time, letting silence settle in the car, letting her think she won, and happily crushing her with it with his own mention. One condition, she looked back to him, her jaw threatening to drop in disbelief. Excuse me, you and I are friends, he said firmly, holding her glare. You're doing me a favor. No conditions. With a smirk, he got comfortable in his seat again. Have fun memorizing all those files alone. Shikamaru, and he waited, leaning back, just the hint of a side-eye at her, that entitled smirk waiting to get what he wanted. You can't be serious, she groaned and clenched her fists, pressing her lips together from releasing an insult, or throwing a fist at him, or from just jumping on him in general. She couldn't fold completely to his demands. In a way she was asking for a lot. Thinking about the talk with Inochi, seeking his help in her private project, trusting him, getting to know more in terms of her own personal curiosity as well. As he would say, it sounded troublesome. But she needed to selfishly know more. What's the worst that could happen anyways? Do this and we'll be friends, deal? You got a deal, Temari. He raised his hand to her, taking the angry squeeze of her own grip with a smile on his face. It hurt, but he wouldn't let her know that. She hated it, and him at this moment, but arguing was pointless. She needed to focus on her work ahead and not what other tricks he wanted to play on her, or the firm grip in her hands. Are you going to tell me that secret? Not yet. She jerked her hand away, shoving it into her lap and glaring out the window. Bastard! Huffing Sunian under her breath, she veered around and pushed his shoulder annoyingly when he chuckled. Walking at her side, the plan made, he carried the same air of composure in enemy territory as she did. Not fear, but caution as they made it towards the front desk, the dark-haired receptionist looking up past the frames of her glees and bowing her head formally in greeting. Good morning, Miss Sabakuno. She reached over and grabbed a pair of visitation pays, one for your eye stand as well. He's my partner, not my eye stand, Temari corrected, cold, no smile needed to enforce his title. He might have taken a little pride in the mention and let her lead. Apologies, she went to stand, gesturing down the main hall. Mr. Uchiha is waiting for you, allow me to take you to him. I already know where he is. She didn't bother to thank her for the visitor tags and led the way, her partner's steps behind, leaving the confused receptionist to watch them depart. As soon as the elevator doors closed, she spoke. Are you ready? Last-minute planning like this is one of my talents, hands sliding into his pockets at a leisurely pace and sighing. Working under pressure hadn't been anything new to him, but he wasn't exactly meant for spy work like this. You're not the first person to make me do something like this. A floor went by before she focused her confusion on him. I'm not. Broaden your mind, dear, you'll see more if you do. She scoffed. Once again her work husband meddling in her life, she'd thank him later, in her mind, maybe in person if things went well. You and Kakashi need to stop hanging around each other so much, she huffed, looking forward again, you're going to catch his complacency. He didn't ignore me for 2 weeks, he shrugged casually, glancing over calmly at her, speaking through her teeth as she glared back at him. Of course you'd get bent out of shape for that, trust me, I was doing you a favor by ignoring you. He scoffed and looked at her, he could spot that damn wall coming back up. How was that a favor? It was rude. New rule, she darkened those teals, looking annoyed, a level under pissed. If you want to be my friend, talk less. You can't just make up rules of how friendships work, Temari. Fine, I'll call them strong suggestions, so I strongly suggest you shut up. He tried to retort, but she cut him off. I've got 2 brothers, Shikamaru, try to argue with me. With a sigh, he accepted his fate and blew out a breath, pausing long enough to hear her mutter just as their floor stopped. I need to focus and you're distracting me. I'm what? She was already out the door before he could ask the question, just falling a step behind as she led the way down the hall. At its end a man dressed in a black suit and red tie, more expensive than the walls around him, born and bred for this very role, same as he was. Sasuke Uchiha. The air cold between the two, even more so as his sights set on the woman dressed in red. Miss Sabakuno, Sasuke greeted, hand extended before him. Mr. Uchiha, Temari addressed back, each shaking hands without looking away, as if waging a war to see who would break first. Temari won. Shikamaru Nara. He had looked past her at Shikamaru, recognizing him and stepped back first as Shikamaru came forward, each shaking a greeting as if it was forced, but Sasuke recovered quickly and went back to his stoic look, Shikamaru returning it just as coldly. I heard you came back to work for Inochi, didn't think you'd make it this far. What makes you say that? Spoken through a tense jaw, that dark glare noted by his alert partner. Your little charity case of course. Sasuke let just the faintest smirk play against his thin lips, seeking to crack the ice. Mr. Yamaharu thinks his daughter can do much better than you. Then it's a good thing I didn't ask for your advice on my relationship. Whatever tension this was, their hands still firmly gripped, Temari would have to break it, to keep his focus on her, to make her partner get his chance without any problems. Side note, the mention of Yamaharu already making her shoulders tense. Who dropped Tsunade's requests multiple times last year, the decision now in the hands of their knights to fight for the top position here. She'd met the man a few times and instantly hated him on the first look. He was cruel in a finer manner, forceful when he spoke, and his lewd gaze threatened harmment. The type of man that thought low of all. Even worse, he decided that he would think the man at her side was not good enough. It did things to her, and her fire peeked out from its cold depths. I wasn't aware that he'd be joining us today. He let go of Shikamaru's hand first. I thought Miss Haruno would be accompanying you today. Sasuke's admission was the hook she needed. A couple weeks ago he had the same break when Sakura greeted him, each shaking stiffly and stumbling at the second reintroduction. The little history Sakura had given her about the man was interesting to say the least. They had dated, briefly, during their private high school senior year and apparently neither had quite gotten over the other since then. Creating a little fantasy for him to hold onto for this visit and instead creating disappointment when she dragged her partner beside her instead. Two birds and one stone. Unfortunately one of her birds seemed to have a bitter rivalry going with Sasuke. Maybe she could work this angle better. She knew anger much better than temptation. Shikamaru is my partner and Sakura was just helping out last week, Temari stated simply, casually throwing the question, ready to catch him further. Will there be a problem if he joins us today? And he hesitated. Temari almost laughed right then and there, just enough surprise broken on his chiseled face. I don't see why not, since he's your partner. Sasuke nodded once, stepped back to fix the crease in his pressed black suit jacket and gestured to the conference room. The stiff start Temari had mentioned, he had returned to that cold look and, to her displeasure, took his time organizing their respected files with one another. She glanced at her partner, that distracted look, in thought and reminded him of his part to give him that push. Kicking with her foot to catch his attention, that heel dragging against his pants leg and only giving her a side eye to the reminder. Ready to begin, Sasuke looked between them. I'm just going to run to the restroom real quick. Shikamaru pulled away and stood, fixing his jacket as he did. Hurry up, Nara. With her final warning to do this right he left and took to his position. He owed her a favor, and he couldn't disappoint her. The plan was to get to that office on floor 22, the CEO's forbidden wing, a rumor that he was out for the day having her book this meeting later in the week. Whoever her informant had been, they were good. His eye stand would be even better later on. Part 1. Make himself blend in, not stand out. His visitor's pea shoved into his coat pocket and pulling the tie from his hair, tying it halfway and thanking himself for not shaving for a few days, tired eye stand look, check. One last touch up and he loosened his tie. As soon as he hit the barren floor of 22 he found nothing to be concerned about, aside from the receptionist typing at the front desk. Mr. Orochimaru isn't here today, she began, her tone verging on annoyed and not open to chatting. Please come by when he's back from vacation next week. So he played the fool card. Sorry. Nervously leaning against the desk, fidgeting with his hand he looked one way then back to her. I was told to stop here and grab some files from the archives for Mr. Uchiha's meeting. I don't think I've seen you before. Slowing down, taking a longer look at his disheveled appearance. Are you new here? Listen, if you need confirmation, just call Mr. Uchiha. He raised his watch as he spoke, checking the time, showing annoyance with a crease of his brows, pulling the rushed eye stand card. You know how he gets when things are delayed. Oh, well, if Mr. Uchiha asked for it, she tensed slightly, suddenly as alert as he was, then just down that way and right to the archives. Go any further and you'll hit Mr. Orochimaru's office. Thank you. His head bowed quickly and he went as directed, Only when he heard the keyboard again did he glance back to make sure she was kept busy. Even better, a phone call took her interest, thanking Kiba for his perfect timing at causing a distraction. And he veered left, halls still empty and the platinum plate of the CEO's name in view. Searching the room, he went straight for the obvious file cabinets, just making out each name to them and quickly realizing that if this was in fact something involving missing money, they would keep it tucked away somewhere more private. The large mahogany desk. Like a spy movie, he took out the key Temari had given him, her contact inside having made a copy for her, and stepped forward. First drawer, a fail, second just the same, each one yielding nothing of financial records. Then it came to him, he'd seen this man before, at the start of the year when he had just gotten back to the city. His girlfriend's father had been just out of sight talking to a pale man, black suit, slicked back in with a long black ponytails, and his smile like that of a snake. He looked shifty, one of those questionable elites who made deals on the side. At the time he hadn't bothered with it, his focus set on Shiho and her needs, but he had not forgotten the third face who had shown up right after. Entitlement helping him when he recognized the banished older brother of Sasuke that night. Itachi Uchiha, CEO of Akatsuki Marketing, the black sheep of the elite world since the start of the season. No, the archives wouldn't have this information, neither would the obvious desk. Standing back, only precious seconds remaining for his planned time set, he glanced around and went to those file cabinets again, searching through until he found a file worth the mention. One with a red cloud printed on top, the logo of the Akatsuki firm. These numbers, at first glance they seemed off, too low for a company who made millions each year, but he kept on, looking through each sheet and taking it to heart. Playing his role perfectly and returning the favor he owed her. Seeking to please for a pinch of her approval. When he returned, pausing at the door only long enough to take a breath to steady himself, he entered the room, pea shown, tie straight, hair tied back perfectly. And I told you, no, Temari's firm response, the first thing he heard. It's better than your company's request for a third of our stocks. Sasuke kept at his own monotonous raise, just subtly glaring back at her. Whatever fight Shikamaru had interrupted, it stopped just as quickly. Took your time, Temari scoffed, leaning back in her chair, calm as if she hadn't been ready to throw herself across that table. Her watch raised and checking it with a breath of relief. I might have gotten lost, he shrugged, seating himself at her side. Whatever this was, he could instantly tell by the way her leg bounced that she was impatient. Whether at him or the meeting, she returned to when Sasuke went on. As Mr. Orochimaru had stated, we want at least 80% of the stocks as collateral. Collateral, she scoffed, still bouncing. You say that like this relationship of ours is a disaster waiting to happen. It's just business, Sasuke huffed, a little harder, louder. You're wasting my time with this nonsense, Uchiha, so we'll come back to this next week once your CEO grows a brain. Hell, probably a pair too, since he had been too chicken to come out and face her from the start, but she kept that one on the tip of her tongue. It came straight from the top. My grandfather doesn't want to risk any hidden clauses until our lawyers see all of YMIZTS. He leaned forward. We need to know what risks our employees will be facing with a possible merger. This entire thing is a risk, she reminded him, inhaled or settled herself. I suggest you pick your side wisely, because if I hear another ridiculous demand like this, I'll rip this whole thing apart. Do I have to repeat myself? Too calm, she hated it. If you do, I'll rip you apart next. With one snapped threat, they yielded, 2 walls placed and no winners on top. I'll have my eyes stand contact yours, Miss Sabakuno. Can't wait, Mr. Uchiha. She threw a mocking smile back at him and stood, her departure followed by Shikamaru, and as soon as the door closed she shot it a venomous look. Hole, she blew under her breath and veered around, stomps being followed by his quick-to-catch-up dress shoes. Neither speaking until they hit the open air of the Sharingan marketing firm's descending steps, stopping at its top. Temari didn't look at him as she asked, Did you do it? Based on what I saw, you were right not to trust them, he sighed. There's no way they could take the third spot on the list with what they made, they are missing money somewhere. She nodded, still looking away. We are going to have to discuss how you use me from now on, he muttered, still feeling the last rush of that adrenaline after he had ped the receptionist to the elevators. She was still on the phone and Kiba had done perfectly. He tried but she returned. Exhilarating. She cut in with a grin and faced him. Not exactly the word I was looking for. Stop your whining, crybaby, this is going to help us so much. She went on with a little more excitement than before, her fight inside forgotten. A couple weeks ago I went and visited a friend of mine and he told me that something was off with the amount we could ask for. It's their numbers that are off, not ours, and if I'm right, that's what Baki meant. A new name to take his interest. Who? He's a family law lawyer who got my guardianship approved, so I could be a legal guardian for my brothers. Adding the addition without much interest, focused still on her work. I was trying to figure this out for 2 weeks, and you now hold all the real records in that brain of yours for us to figure this out. She sighed at her explanation's happy ending and looked up at him, expectant. You can say it. And boost your ego. He scoffed, looked away and rolling his eyes back down to her, only to feel every fiber of his being tense up. Well, I deserve it, don't I? She was seeking his approval, his opinion and asking, looking at him in such a way that he was sure it blinded him for a second. Yet another new woman to be thrown in the mix, like that fawn from that one Friday she had been in his office. Anything. You're the best. He simply agreed. You're damn right I am. She declared herself on top and threw a victorious laugh into the air. Whatever mood this was, this smile she threw his way, he was sure it beat out her laughter. It wasn't cute, so carelessly bared and wide, almost childish, but it exhaled a breath of unhinged freedom on her restraints and the happiness it came with, addicting to be around. All he could do was stare back, possibly making that stupid face she called him out for. The next question to nearly throw him on his when she settled. Want to grab lunch before we head back? It took him a moment to come to his senses, to start thinking again. Lunch. Saying it like a foreign word, lost somewhere between replaying the smile and now her question, possibly the smirk playing on her lips now as she took in his confusion. Friends grab lunch together, right? He couldn't let her win every time. You can buy this time, she scoffed at the strike. You'd think the rich had manners. Think of it as an apology, he suggested with a shrug. For what? For ignoring me, he hummed a thoughtful note and smirked. For spilling coffee on me, she groaned at that addition, and for using me just now. And those nightmares returned, leaving their marks. Shikamaru, if I was going to use you, it wouldn't be for just this. Somehow he should have seen that one coming. Her taunting amusement returned, pleased with herself as she let her eyes drop down him shamelessly, even more as she hummed and turned to lead the way down the steps, throwing back a mocking addition to fix his stupid face. Besides, I needed an accomplice just in case things went south. Now that part he saw coming. What a troublesome woman. Nothing about getting to know her had been easy. He practically had to pull and push at every opening she made, sometimes letting him know a little more, others shooting him down with a bat of her hand. Running both hot and cold. Whatever second look this was, he would grab on and let himself indulge in this curious path he decided to take all on his own. It wasn't straight and pointed with signs, it wasn't paved or cleared for him to simply walk forward. It was a mess. Tangled and cracked, plenty of obstacles in his way, and whatever ground he did manage to make, built his stamina up for more, just enough for a mention. At least he could call her his friend. He followed beside her, heels making way past the crowd with ease, taking a moment to come to his barring as they made their way downtown and towards the edges of its rich borders. You remember my threat last time we had lunch, right? Vividly, he sighed, absently touching his tie, the one she had grabbed and brought him within inches of her. Well, this goes into that same category. She peeked at him and returned to her straight-ahead walk. As much as fine dining sounds great and all, it can never beat a place like this. As her last step hit her last word, she stopped across the street and looked at a small corner shop. Its logo foreign and the shade of red looked more pink as the weather had taken to aging it over time, the second best Sunian food in Konoha. Where's the first? His curious ask made as he stepped after her. Back in Southside there's a little mom and pop shop I used to work at right before I started college. She glanced back at him, a little shrug of her shoulders. Inochi and I come here during our little one-on-ones, he's a fan of spicy foods. Sharing something with him, like this. Whatever Friday this was, it was bound to be one of his favorites of all time. If I open the door for you, will you yell at me? His joking reminder made as he did just that, opened the door and took her eye roll with a smirk. Funny, she scoffed as she walked in. This was the part where he completely lost all sense, not understanding a word said except her name. Her accent returned as she greeted the man behind the counter as if he was an old friend. His voice gruff, like gravel under shoes, Sunian, a rough-sounding language when it came from a man, yet the way she drew it out made it fall on an almost silky note, smooth and with no heavy pauses. Nodding along and ordering whatever it was she was ordering, coming to him soon after and leaning against the counter at the bar with a sigh. How far along have you gotten on the tasks I've ignored for you? I assumed you'd know that after changing my schedule. She looked at him with an unapologetic shrug. Are you going to run my day again? I'm bossy, remember? She shrugged, going back to the counter to collect the order and returning to their setup. Some golden-colored rice, shaded with red flakes, and chicken of some sort that matched in tones. He'd tried all kinds of foods thanks to his not blood-related brother and his culinary skills, but whatever he was eating now, it didn't just burn, it threatened to choke him with its fire. Spicy. As if to emphasize her point, she took a bite of one of the red peppers, chewing it casually and watching the heat wash over him from a single bite. Not at all, he lied, forcing it down, dying inside afterwards. She nodded along with him, pressing her lips together and still failing to contain the smile before sliding over a bottle for him to drink from. He took to it like his life depended on the liquid to extinguish the fire burning his mouth. That's my plate. I made sure they dulled yours down. She chuckled and swapped their containers, a little trick to brighten her day further, purely personal, figured your palate was weak. Of course you'd find a way to insult my tongue too. Releasing the last of the heat from his numbed mouth, she hummed and went on, eating her food casual after her words. I don't know what else it can do, besides talk too much. He didn't take the bait. He saw exactly where that was going, led and focused elsewhere. The food before him now lacked the red, it was, as she said, dulled down for his weak palate, but the flavor was rich and filling. This tasted better, good, really good, like that Saturday night hangout he used to have with Choji as teens, getting to enjoy his brother's paean for exotic foods, without the heat thankfully. You've got this way of talking that just seems, he drew out cautiously. She jumped in before he could decide. Suggestive. She sighed as if she knew where the conversation was going. Throws you off, that's why I do it. Plus you make that stupid face every time I say something you don't expect. She shrugged and grinned at the end. It's funny. If we're going to be just friends, you should probably stop. No point in denying it. Whatever this was and couldn't be, he went direct. Does it bother you? Her eyes narrowed, focused on him and his response, and despite himself, he spoke honestly. Well, no, his unfinished answer made her nod. Then get used to it. She went in for another furkful, not waiting for his follow-up. You remember the guidelines I made you read about the company and our department? He made a humorless grin down at his plate as she forced him to remember the pages of that binder. Page 104, Section 6, Part 1. No internal fraternization. His answer met with her own nod. I follow the rules, and the devil smiled once more, but it says nowhere in there that I can't around and mess with you. She met his eye roll her way with an even brighter grin, daring him to comply quietly. It's how I treat my friends. An hour into being your friend and you've already exhausted me, woman. I never said being my friend was easy. No, it's not. He had an opening, a little crack she let him slip through to get pieces of that story now, if that was the one he wanted to try out today. You mentioned earlier about a guardianship for your brothers, he began cautiously, watching her carefully as she gave it a second to process, and decided she would share. Well, yeah, Gara was 9 and Konkuro was 14 when we left, so I had to make sure I had custody of them while we lived here, she shrugged, speaking plainly about it, as if it hadn't changed her entire life. We got bounced in the system for almost a year before I was able to get those papers. She huffed, as if exhausted by the mention, adding annoyingly, it didn't help that my brother got arrested and was sent to juvie right after. I'm going to I have to earn the rest of that story. You med right, playing with her rice, she let loose a little more and tried. If Inochi had her back, then maybe he could as well. That's actually how we met Sai though, same shitty foster homes until I made enough to get our own place. Questions lined and he decided to go the easier route. Friendships started slow, they took time and effort, trusting the other with bits and pieces of their life, and his life was his family ties. A mention of that Friday to figure that part out as well. Any reason you were trying to push him on Ino? He raised a brow, effort put in, you know she's engaged. Like I said, I owed him a favor, she stated, glaring back now, that look that took away a strike, it would have been easier had someone, she tightened her eyes at him, told me she got engaged. I wasn't aware that I'm supposed to tell you these things. He scoffed, another strike for not predicting the unpredictable. You should have known, genius, his eyes rolled, going back to his meal, the company to his side, even annoyed, was almost pleasant, you're going to have to do better about that as my partner, because information like that is gold in that building. For professional or personal use? Both, she smirked, those strings I talked about, all favors people owe me, same as yours was. It's why I have so much pull in the company. Makes Tsunade's job so much easier when she has me to do all the work for her. Ah yes, the cruel mistress controlling her domain once again, his casual shot making her fight the grin to not tell him just how easy he makes it for her. She couldn't help herself, she liked him, if anything for the way he went right in for an attack and she countered before he could even blink. Shikamaru, you should probably stop flirting with me, she turned to face him, smile in place, not meaning a word. You've got a girlfriend. How is that flirting? Genuinely confused, he faced her. Because it's distracting, she didn't bother to move, keeping that accidental few inches from one another, so stop it if we're going to be just friends. Just friends, words right out of her mouth, at least they could agree where that line was. Friends and partners were a good work dynamic, it felt more comfortable, and for him less work in needing to stop whatever this pesky urge was. He'd just hide the fact that he'd catch her sway away later. For whatever reason he always watched her walk away as if she begged the question of, would she ever return? Argue with her? He'd be stupid if he tried. Fine. She hated the response as soon as he said it.